Network for the strong, not the weak.
No escaping this. 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 No one's ready to deal with us. No escaping this. No escaping this. No escape. No one's ready to deal with us. No escaping this. No escaping this. No escape. No one's ready to deal with us. No escaping this. No escaping this. No escape. No one's ready to deal with us.
You are listening to the End of the Bench podcast on Built for This Network, hosted by my man, HRap.
How y'all doing? Thank you for tuning in. It's your man HRap coming at you live and direct. Thank you for tuning in as you do every Tuesday. We've been on hiatus. Thank you. Needed to recharge my batteries. I haven't had a show in 168 hours. That is rare. First time in 5 years. You are tuning in to Built for This Network. You can connect with us on Spreaker.com or here on YouTube. Go to Spreaker.com, look up Built for This Network, or if you're looking at and subscribe, hit the like button, and then you'll get notifications on a weekly basis of what I'm doing here. Then, if you're looking on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the share button, tell a friend to tune in. We are simulcast on. If you can't listen to the show in its entirety, this is a podcast. There's no such thing as I missed your show because it's on 24/7, 365. You can catch me on Spreaker.com, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Castbox, Deezer, and Podcast Addict, or wherever you download your podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Subscribe, hit the like button, hit the like button, hit the like button. I will continue to say that. Hit the like button. I always do this. I acknowledge my ancestors. I acknowledge my family and friends. When you do that, if they've transitioned, they send down blessings and protections. If you're doing this, you get support. I want to connect myself to everybody in the Whitmore family. Pollard, Turner, Ballard, Cotton, Harper, Bailey, Shaw, Thompson, Chris, Lansdowne, Liggins, Duncan. You know me, my mother, my father, my brothers, sisters, cousins, nieces, and nephews. All the Williams clan, we're in the building. Thank you for tuning in. I have a lot of information to disseminate this week, but this episode is brought to you by BS3 Radio, and I want to welcome you to the Forecast family. This is the Forecast, and I'll be right back. No, I made a mistake. There you go. Thank you for staying tuned. Now, what I want to do is let you know I got a lot on my mind this week. As usual, I'm going to speak quickly. I don't want to drag it out this week. Usually I go 2 hours, hour and a half. I want to get this information to you so you can go on with the rest of your day. Let it marinate. Let it marinate in your spirit. Let it marinate in your soul. Let it marinate in your mind. Hopefully it brings you to action. We just celebrated a national holiday. It's called Juneteenth. First and foremost, I want to let y'all know I'm not really pleased with the fact that it's a national holiday. A lot of people celebrating it as a national holiday and acting as if it was a victory. It wasn't a victory, in my opinion. You take it the way you want to take it. I understand. It's not for me to judge how you feel about anything, and hopefully you're not judging me. But the fact that Juneteenth is a national holiday is a concession. We have to stop settling for concessions. A concession is something that is given to pacify you when you need greater gains. Should we celebrate Juneteenth as a community? You 100% correct. And I celebrated Juneteenth in its birth state this year. I was down in Texas, Dallas, Texas, to be specific. We went down in Texas. We were all over the Dallas County area this weekend. I had a great time. One of the greater families in the Dallas metropolitan area, I would say. My man, Dog. Shout out to my man, Dog. Awesome brother. He had an awesome family. It was a brother down there named Mun who set up he organized the celebration. Awesome. Again, look, it was 90 degrees. We had a bunch of people out there selling out their wares. Massive support. And I'm going to get on that a little bit later in regards to Texas. The reason I didn't want Juneteenth to be a national holiday is because it seems as if y'all hear me talk about, salute to Dr. Greg Carr, the governance structure and the social structure, right? And when you're talking about the governance structure, well, you're talking about the social structure, that's how people see you. And the governance structure is how you see yourself. Now, if we are going to deal, and the most important is how you see yourself. So if we're going to deal in the governance structure, we don't need the United States federal government to acknowledge us at all. Not for us to celebrate something, at least, You can celebrate something without the approval of the United States federal government. That's all I'm saying. Look, you can do it any way you want, but you have other, this is the people who are oppose what I say. These are the very same people that always refer to other cultures. Hey, other culture don't do it like that, and we need to do it like this culture. A lot of times they're referencing the Jewish culture and the Latino culture. But one thing about the Jewish and the Latino culture, they don't wait for other culture. They don't wait for the United States federal government to mandate or allow them to celebrate their history. We must get into the mindset state of celebrating our history without other people's permission, so to speak. And that's why I'm talking about this today. I don't need the United States federal government to say, oh, it's okay to celebrate Juneteenth or celebrate Juneteenth. People in Texas have been doing it. People across the South have been doing it. People in Philadelphia have been doing it. And last year with the assassination, the murder of one George Floyd, it became a national issue. And they did it to pacify us because they thought we were going to uprise and tear this joint up. And that's what, Donald Trump, we're going to give him a holiday to pacify him. And it distracted us a little bit, but we stayed focused and we got things done, some things. But these are not victories. These are concessions. It is not worth it. I want to salute Irene. Thank you, Irene, for the support. My man, Big Chris. My man, my little brother, Wanga. Thank y'all for being in the chat room. It's always good to see people in the chat room and support. But we must get to the point where we can celebrate things like Malcolm X's birthday. Don't let your kids go to school on Malcolm X's birthday. We don't need it to be a national holiday. We don't need the approval or anything. Don't go to work on that day if you can. But I would, if I still had kids, or if one day I'm going to have grandkids, I don't want them going to school on Malcolm X's birthday. Because those are our least. We need to find out. We need to get our own calendar. And actually, hopefully somebody steals this idea and does it. Get a calendar. And all prominent black people, we're taking some of their birthdays off. That's what we need to start doing. I remember years and years ago, and a video clip was floating around YouTube where it was this show, Phil Donahue. It's the original kind of Oprah Winfrey, Geraldo Rivera kind of show where you have a stage full of people disseminating their thoughts, and you have an audience responding, and you have a host going around, kind of like what Oprah used to do, right? So it was a brother stood up and said, Huey P. Newton needs to be, what he did for the community, he needs to have a holiday in his order. These are the days that we need to acknowledge. A lot of us don't understand that the fact that nobody gave us February as Black History Month. We took it. And it's the shortest month. Okay, well, organize some things throughout the year so we can celebrate us. Let's take the whole month of June and celebrate us because it's Black Music History Month. We can have it Black History Celebration Month. or something of that nature. See, we must start to acknowledge things. The father of Black History Month, Carter G. Woodson, who started Negro History Week, and we converted to Black History Month. He started that because he wanted to acknowledge us, to acknowledge ourselves. So why are we waiting for the United States federal government to make Juneteenth a holiday? What I'm going to do is show you a brief video of Juneteenth, and hopefully this will uplift you and sit in your spirit, and you can tell some people about Juneteenth. I got my man Wilkes in the building, part of the forecast, 1/4 of the forecast. And I want y'all to look at this video and then you understand exactly what I'm talking about. We don't need other people to tell us stuff so we can acknowledge us. We need to be immersed in our own history. So you'll have a level of pride, a foundational pride, and then we can build from there. Stay tuned. I'll be back shortly.
Juneteenth is a deeply emotional moment for enslaved people because for decades, for centuries, enslaved people prayed for, hoped for, fought for in the form of slave rebellions, running away, bought their freedom when they could. And if you read slave narratives, if you listen to spirituals from the era of slavery, you know that enslaved people longed for freedom. This was something that had been hoped for, but many believe may never come.
Sandy mostly promised to give me $40 a month in pay. When lots of the boys said they ain't want, they rather go free, you know.
Being able to go wherever they wanted, being able to wander about. For enslaved people, it was an expression of their freedom.
Well, Matt Porter was the one that Mom wished for, one of our white folks in neighbor. We come along, we all sitting on the fence, and the colored children come along and asked her, did she want to go with her? And she said, yes, she might run the horses. She went on with them. I never did see her until that other room.
When I think about Juneteenth, I think about it in the context of Emancipation Day celebrations that began January 1, 1863. They took on a whole new meaning when slavery was formally abolished. After 1865, you would have had African-American veterans who fought in the Civil War be prominent in these celebrations, dressed in their military garb, speeches from enslaved people, the most prominent black politicians singing of hymns, spirituals, discussions of registering to vote. Enslaved people celebrating in public their newfound freedom was an act of resistance. Because we have to remember, slavery came to an end after a 4 years bloody Civil War. Still the bloodiest conflict in American history. Many people in the South and in the nation who did not want to see slavery abolished fought tooth and nail to block the 13th Amendment. The abolition of slavery created a huge humanitarian crisis in the South. Suddenly 4 million people have very little means to take care of themselves, to support themselves, and do so in a really, really hostile environment. So the military was necessary to make sure that enslaved people got the food, the medicine, the shelter that they needed in order to survive. They're also there to protect, to the extent that that was possible, freed people from violence, from recriminations, from slaveholders, from Confederates who still hadn't given up the fight.
And I remember when the Yankees stopped here, and the Yankees stopped right on the corner, and the prostituting people knew, we go to the ground team, and the chicken hang over the stone. That's the punishment they got. Next time you see, they come on full troopy at you. All riding horses. Hang on a minute. I said, Mama, where are they going? So they're all going home now.
When the last federal troops leave the South, it's a signal to Southerners the federal government wasn't going to put its might into ensuring civil rights of black people would be observed. You have 20, 30 years later, black people being lynched in public, and there isn't a federal anti-lynching law to protect them. In most communities in America, there's a history of lynching and racial violence, and very few communities have marked that, commemorated that. Every decade since the end of slavery, black people have been more educated, accrued more wealth, more status in American society. Every decade since 1865. But there's been one constant, and that constant is the presence of random racist violence. What I see in George Floyd's murder was a white police officer attempting to dominate and to subdue a black man who was not resistant, who could not resist. Even though slavery came to an end in 1865, the desire to master and dominate black bodies did not. And we have never dealt with that. These are the kind of stark realities that are highlighted during Juneteenth. If black people's lives can be expunged through racist violence and no one is held accountable, how free are we? Are we free?
Thank you for tuning in. It's your man, HRap once again. As you watched there, you saw the reasons why we should celebrate Juneteenth and the reason we should do more than wait for the government to give us a holiday. I told several people this weekend, being happy that Juneteenth is a holiday is like going to work, asking for a raise, and they throw you a pizza party, and you're supposed to be satisfied. Oh, well, you don't get the raise, but here goes a pizza. And that's what the holiday is. We cannot be subdued by these. Again, we're given trinkets, and we need a treasure chest. That's what the problem is. He mentioned two things. He mentioned there was no anti-lynching law back in the 1800s, right? Still isn't one. There still isn't an anti-lynching law. And people used to criticize me for criticizing the whole voting process. This is why I used to criticize the voting process. How has it been 157 years, and you still haven't put anything in place to protect people that look like me? My sisters, my nieces, my grandmother, my aunts, my wife, potentially. Nothing. Nothing is in place to protect us or people that look like us. And then you want me to continue to vote for these people. This is why we need, like I said last week, we need to create something like the Democratic Party, the Republican Party. Hell, screw that, the We Party. We need something. You know what I'm saying? And then when you do that, you get the allies that are people who are standing on the sidelines saying, hey, we can get this together. Because, you have us and you have the people who look like us who are basically in the white supremacist training. And then you have people in other communities who are down to help us. I want to send a shout out to my Uncle Rory. I want to shout out to Teresa Rucker. I got my man Microwave and Joe in the building. Thank y'all for tuning in. And these are the things that we continue to talk about. He also mentioned the amount of education and wealth. See, there's a problem with education and wealth. To quote Carter G. Woodson, and W.B. Du Bois, the more we are educated, the more we act like them. We don't need to act like anyone. See, are we being educated or are we being trained? See, it's easy to be a accountant and it's easy to be a CPO and things of that nature. You learn how to manage their money. Because if we have more millionaires, more doctors, more lawyers, and all the positions that are deemed successful, why isn't our community expanding? You know why? Because we're happy working for someone else instead of working towards improving us. Black unemployment is high because Black people don't start businesses. And when we do start businesses, it's a sole proprietor. You're a sole proprietor. I told y'all a couple of weeks ago, 13 years ago. I don't need to go all, I need to do the years. 13 years ago, Harvard did a study that stated that we only put 2 cents back into the Black community. If we put 8 more cents to that, it was at the time was 1.4 million unemployed people. All those people who have, at one point, get this, 1.4 Black-owned business, 1.4 million Black-owned business. You add 8 cents to that, every one of those people could be employed by a black proprietor. It's less complex now, and we still continue to go to college to get a job, not to start a job. I understand, look, everybody's not built to be an entrepreneur. Everybody is not built to be a king. I understand, hey, good morning, king. I get that. That's cool. But everybody isn't a king because you need subjects. You can be the king of your house, but you still need subjects. You need a family. So in order to create a family, you need a wife. And then you and her must consummate a child. So in order to be a king, you must create a kingdom. And then you have those people in that kingdom support you because you're supporting them. It's called reciprocity. So in order for us to get out of these doldrums of poverty, and most of us are not in poverty, contrary to popular belief, most Black people are not struggling. We out here busting our asses, paying rent, cable, nice cars, and things of that nature. We have to stop allowing people to, again, the governance structure and the social structure. The social structure is how people see you, and that's because people will drive through your neighborhood and see 12 or 13 guys on the corner. This is a bad neighborhood. But you've totally discarded the 300 people who just walked in the door and the 300 people on their way out of the door. So it's 600 people in that community working their behinds off to be as successful as possible. They're going to church, they're doing charity, they're doing everything they need to do, and you just define that entire community by the 12 knuckleheads that stand on the corner. That's the social structure, how people see you. We must work within the governance structure, how you see yourself. But until we stop using education to go enhance somebody else's business and enhance our own, because success is not defined by working downtown in one of those big buildings unless we own that big building. Success is not always working at the greatest law firm in the world unless we own the greatest law firm in the world. Maybe it's you starting your own law firm and building it up. Maybe it's you as an attorney becoming a city councilman and reallocating some of that district attorney money to private practice run by you and other brothers and sisters like you who are attorneys. Now you get some of that state funded money, and we get this since our people are being targeted by the criminal justice system. You funneling that money right into our community, and we keeping our people safe from the wicked criminal justice system. See, we must use what we have to become what we want. It's easy to get a job. Look, right now, 8 million jobs out there available. Only 4 million people apply in the month of May. You can get a job, but do you want a job? You have to have a job. Why don't you try to create a job? Use that job to finance your dream. Hi, Bill for this network. So we must put ourselves in positions to win at all costs. Juneteenth is a hell of a celebration. As you saw, we're going to celebrate the soldiers. We're going to celebrate the women. We're going to celebrate the children. We're going to celebrate the men of our past. And we're going to consistently do that. But we don't need Joe Biden to say, okay, people, it's okay to take the day off. You can get, and then you got Governor Pritzker here in Illinois saying you ain't going to get paid. Cool. Good. Because when you bring your ass around in these churches and these community centers in 2 years, we're going to remember that. Because it wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. See, it's cool to support every other issue but ours. And this is why we need to break free from the chains of Democrat, Republican. You got to be down with us. Because guess what? Since the people who always say black people ain't doing enough, since they always point to other cultures, guess what other cultures did? Other cultures started the Tea Party. Ted Cruz down there in Texas screwing up the whole state. Nationwide, screwing up the whole nation with his vote in the Senate. We need to do that. See, it's enough time with settling for what people give us. It's time to take. It's time to take. It is time to take. Because, hey, it don't do you no good to talk about it's over 10,000 lawyers that are black. It was only one 100 years ago, and it all 10,000 working for the man, so to speak. So we must get into a situation to where we acknowledge our greatness. And when you acknowledge our greatness, see, stop looking at your life. If you were born in 1980, it was a ton of things happening in 1970. I was born in 1970. There was a ton of things that happened in the 60s going back. We must acknowledge those things. That's why I got a little thing on Paul Robeson coming up a little later. And this will let you see how greatness works and how this greatness can matriculate into continued greatness. Our ancestor, Marcus Garvey, quoted him saying, what Africans can do, Africans will do. Have done, they will do. This lets you know whatever somebody's done in the past that looks like you have that inculcated into your DNA and you can do it. But you're not taught that in school because you're not being educated, you're being trained. You're being trained. When you look at things around the country, you see that there's, this imaginary box that everybody say, I'm thinking outside of the box. Won't you get your ass out the box? We're no more thinking in the box. How about crawling outside of the box and then thinking and realize the unlimited resources that the world has? Because our brother Paul Robeson, as you'll see, once he started saying, I'm a citizen of the world, they took his passport because they understand that the borders of the United States is the box. You have the opportunity. You are earthison. You are a citizen of the earth, not just a citizen of the United States of America. Shout out to my man, Big Illinois here in the building. Always good to see you, my brother. And every time we take a step forward, it would always, when you learn your history, it'll show you every time somebody in our community takes a step forward, they're being pushed 3 steps back. And that's cool, but you can't be intimidated by it because it ain't the system, it ain't the man holding you back. It's just the natural course of events here. And if you know the natural course of events, it's like entering a river. If you enter a river, you know the tide is high at a specific time, you know you're going to have a fight on your hands. You still need to cross the Mississippi River to get to the rest of the country, but you're going to have a fight on your hands. So you prepare for that fight and you move on. You don't allow the intimidation of the Mississippi River to stop you from seeing the western part of the country or the eastern part of the country if you're already over here. You just understand what you have to deal with. See, when I talk about the system and things of that nature, I let people know about this so you know that the fight is coming. It's tough when you get ambushed, but when you know the fight is coming, it's easy to move forward, right? Part 1 of the fight. They had built a memorial up in Minnesota to our brother George Floyd, right? They took it down in the darkness of night. And it was a cowardly act, but the government did it. The city government did it. And you don't hear anybody from the Democratic Party, you don't hear anybody from the Republican Party, you don't hear anybody from these independent parties saying, what happened right here? You knew it was coming down, but why not communicate with the people who were standing out there last year, ready to tear your city up, that you allowed them to build that monument to calm them down? Another concession. Concessions can be taken away when you create laws and when you create things that are substantial. They cannot be taken away. You must engage locally. Because as you see, oh, we love George Floyd, we love George Floyd, we love George Floyd. This can never happen again. 2 people get shot after him, and you take down the monument to commemorate what happened right there, which you should be using as a deterrent, but you didn't. Guess what? This same system allows people like Derek Chauvin, the murderer of George Floyd, the convicted murderer of George Floyd, the dude who snuffed him out, the dude who gave us trauma porn, a man standing on another man's neck while 3 or 4 other police officers watch. And stop criticizing the people who were standing there, because you know what? I don't see a whole lot of people nowhere rushing up on people with guns. Because if you brazen enough to stand on a man's neck shooting somebody, and can't be too far down the road in your mind, right? So stop criticizing people for that. But Derek Chauvin is attempting to get a retrial. One of the things that his attorney is fighting for is time served. Then he's trying to get a retrial because one of the brothers, see, this goes back to me saying months ago, must we be seen? Because we're trying to play into the social structure. I want to be seen fighting against the system. You don't have to be seen fighting against the system. Just fight against the system. But this brother who was on the jury, and he was at a protest, and he didn't divulge that he was on the jury and convicted Derek Chauvin, and now he potentially is eligible for a mistrial because they're going to say that guy had a predisposed notion of what happened. And everybody in America, this is a worldwide phenomenon. Everybody saw him kill him, so everybody was predisposed to it. But they're trying to do that, and when you do that, you run the risk of, even in legal circles, they tell you this: the longer the distance away from the event, the more likely it is that you'll be exonerated. So if he gets another trial, seeing how 365 days ago, USA Today had a poll that stated 60% of the people in America, which is insanely low, everybody thought it was high, insanely low, thought that was murder. Now it's down to 30. So guess what that means? It'll be one white guy on that jury, or one of these sucker brothers on the jury, or sisters on the jury, or Karen that says not guilty. Not guilty. And then then Derek Chauvin goes home. And then what we gonna do? Get mad? We gonna tear it up? See, we don't have to tear it up. Withdraw your funds. Support your brothers and sisters. Find things. Do the extra thing. Download that official Black Wall Street app. Put the alerts on every time you drive through your town on Earth, or at least in the United States of America. You drive past a black-owned business, alert will pop up. See, we must go the extra mile to get what we need if we really want it. I'm tired of arguing with people. Oh, man, well, you never know. And I know. Well, all right, cool. But these are the things, the necessary steps that we must take to make sure our greatness is acknowledged, to uplift us, to be educated about us, to show us that we can do anything. Because standing around arguing with people and why would you arguing with a human being that George Floyd wasn't murdered is paramount to argue with somebody about how to spell your name. Seriously. Because who am I gonna believe, you or my lying ass eyes? And that's pretty much it. But when you're dealing with things like this, and then they move the trial of his cohorts, other police officers, from August to March. Again, attempting to put enough space between the act itself and the trial so the emotions run low and somebody will be empathetic and let these people go. And again, is it time? We're going to tear this joint up? No, we don't have to tear it up. But what you do is start supporting each other. Like, again, another community that these people who have so much critical thought about our community, and they will tell you everything that's wrong without an answer, without a plan, without a plot. What they do is, what about the Jewish community? You know what? It's a Jewish community in New York and Brooklyn. They got their own police station. Has nothing to do with NYPD. Has nothing to do with NYPD. It's run by them. So we can do that. Again, as I stated, when it's Yom Kippur and all these other Jewish holidays, that community shuts down. And then we need to start shutting down. See, if we start opening businesses to help ourselves or hire ourselves and do what we need to do, then we can take off any holiday we want and people will suffer the consequences. Shout out to my man DJ Mad Nice, built for this network. He in the building. Joe built for this network, and Big Illinois built for this network. I'm sorry for that, not acknowledging you, brothers. Now, this is what I'm talking about, man. We can sit around, and I got my brother, the captain of the forecast, Mondays at 9 p.m. Ben, BS3 Sports. Please hit the follow on that, support that as well, because we're giving out information at all times. So I got my man Ray the Kev in the building. Texas in the building, big time. Much love to Texas. But like I was saying, man, these are the things that we have to do to ensure our greatness won't be forgotten or overlooked. But if you're busy trying to only get a job and not enhance your community, you will suffer the consequences. So guess what? Step number one, I don't care who you worship, but we need to respect everybody else's worshiper, the target of their worship. I don't care who you lay down with. That's not your business. I don't care what you do with your body. That's not your business. We're not trying to police each other. We're trying to police the community at large. Tell you what, let's get to the point where 75 to 80% of black people work for black people in the United States of America. 75 to 80% of black people rent from black people in America. When you buy your food, you buy from black people. 75 to 80% of shop with them. And then we can start arguing about that ancillary nonsense. Until then, respect every, like my man Pete say, penitentiary rules are in effect. Respect everything and everybody around you. Period. Point blank. I got my man Doc in the building. Much love. Good to see you, brother. So with these things on the table, it's stuff that we have to realize that we're under attack. It is a war going on outside. It really is. And you must realize that simple things like you only hear about the negative things in our community. You only hear about the negative things. You only hear about the drug dealers, the murderers, the violence, and things of that nature. You never hear about a sister by the name of Jalen Jarrell Brown. Jalen Jarrell Brown. I'll say it again. Jalen Jarrell Brown. She got accepted at 140 universities nationwide. 140 universities. She has over $5 million in scholarship. She can pay for you to go to college. But we don't. You didn't hear that name. You don't hear that name. You will hear about Brian Williams, the podcaster, slapped his wife, the end of the bench, all that pro-black stuff he talking with that HRap nonsense is worthless because he slapped his wife. You'll hear about that. But you won't hear about our young sister, Jalen Jarrell Brown. $5 million in scholarship. This lets you know, hey, dribbling a basketball, throwing a basketball, throwing a baseball, boxing and all that. That's not the only way you can get out of the poverty or out of your circumstances. You can actually go to the free library, pick up free books, and learn. And when you learn, you'll empower yourself. When you empower yourself, it's nothing you cannot do. But what you didn't hear a whole lot about is these sisters in Mississippi. These sisters in Mississippi had AP classes. When you have AP class, when you have traditional classes, your GPA is 4.0 if you're perfect. Now, if you have AP class, you can get up to 5. Advanced placement, that's what AP stands for. You got 2 sisters, the valedictorian and the salutatorian. Valedictorian is salutatorian. They're at the top of their classes in a primarily black school in the state of Mississippi with a black principal. And you have some white parents stand up and say, hey, we've been following our kids to 7th grade. Our kids need to be the valedictorian. And this principal, a brother, folded. They got co-valedictorians, salutatorian, and it diminished these 2 young ladies. And then you wonder, I know these young ladies going to excel. It's going to make them work hard because clearly they had a proper support system. Clearly they had a proper work ethic. So you potentially made an enemy. And you really don't want a whole lot of sisters on the other side of your fight. Trust and believe it. You don't want to fight with a lot of black women. You don't want to fight with one. But we're looking at these situations where these people stood up and snatched a victory out of it, put defeat in the jaws of victory. Our young success have to go around, and they're gonna. This is psychological damage. They're gonna go around wondering, no matter what I do, will they come and try to take that too? And this is why, again, when you know the fight is there, you can overcome it. But a lot of these people don't know the fight is there or pretend that the fight is not there. And then these things sneak up on you and you're destroyed. Again, to quote our ancestor, Carter G. Woodson, he said, hey, the same education that uplifts the young white boy destroys the young black boy and girl. Because all you hear about is George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, Ulysses S. Grant, Abraham Lincoln, and you hear about one or two of us. What does that say? They're up here and we're down there. That's why I asked the question, is this education or is this training? You must understand that it has to be education. Integration with the separate, the Brown Boys Board of Education, separate but equal. But there's never been equal. It's always been defunded on our side. There always have been, and that when they started integrating the schools, what they did was bring in a lot of white teachers, and the white teachers see you as less than. And when they see you as less than, they don't pour into you. And when they don't pour into you, you get less of an education. You get less of an education. You get less motivated. And when you get less motivated, you step to the side and you be subservient. And we must get out of that. There's nothing wrong with integration, but what we're going to have to do is realize every time we integrate our educational process, it is paramount to the Jews allowing the Germans to educate their children. Do you think a person with a swastika could educate a person in the Jewish community? Hell no. No. And I'm not saying all of anybody is bad. But this education system is all bad. Because anytime you don't know who W.B. Du Bois is, you don't know who Fannie Lou Hamer is, you don't know who some of the most Ben Rustin, Whitney Young, and most people in my city right here, Whitney Young is one of the most dominant high schools in the United States of America. And only people who know, most people in Chicago think Whitney Young is a damn high school. They don't know that's a great man. That's a great black man who, no offense to the brother, Ice Cube, that plan that Ice Cube presented is the Whitney Young plan he created almost 85 years ago. You ain't know that though, because you don't know how great you can be if you don't never look back and see how great you were. This is the purpose of having a father. This is the purpose of having a mother. So you can tell how great your grandmothers are, your grandfathers are, your uncles, aunts, nieces, nephews, cousins, and so forth and so on. When you give you a perfect example, since we all love sports. This used to be a sports show. Jalen Rose found out his father was a #1 draft pick. And he busted his ass and made himself a #1 draft pick. Because if he can do it, I can too. And so if you find out that your uncle, aunt, father, mother, brother was an athlete, you can be an athlete. But if they're a scholar, you can be a scholar. If they're an attorney, you can be an attorney. My man, I ain't going to say his name because he don't really like his name being said. He asked me not to say his name. I got a homeboy who his father was an attorney, big time attorney at the UN. Guess what he went on to be? Worked for the CIA, the FBI, and the DIA. Look that up, DIA. That's a real thing. So your father, one of the most prominent attorneys in Chicago, started working for the UN, be a professor at Fisk, and you go on to CIA, FBI. You see what happens? His son is doing great things too. I'm not going to say what his son's doing, but trust me, he's like my nephew. He is my nephew. He's not like my nephew. He is my nephew. He's doing great things right now. Can't tell you what it is, but trust me. He's doing great things, but because he knows what his father is. How about this? One of his uncles and aunts were part of the Little Rock 7. Look that up for me. They part of Little Rock 7. If you know what the Little Rock 7 is, then you see the greatness that matriculates through my man's family. And my man father, did great. His mom did great. But he grew up regular like me. He grew up on the same block. He grew up in the same neighborhood as I did. We hung out for years and years and years, and we still hang out to this day. We've been hanging out for 30-some years. So when you realize how great, my Uncle Rory's in here right now. My Uncle Rory used to take time. I can remember being at 1336 South Carolina. My Uncle Rory was on his way out for a date. He stopped and played a game of backgammon with me. You know why he did that? He did that. He's in the chat room now, and he did that to make sure I knew he loved me. And every move me and my cousins, his other nephews ever made, he was there to say, hey man, I don't need you effing this up. You go out and be the best you can be. That's how he found you. And I look at my Uncle Rory, and he taking us to go play basketball with professional basketball players. And this the kind of thing, he'd go to play college. He'd come back to the neighborhood hanging out, shooting ball. He's shooting ball. He is showing us that greatness is there. My Uncle Richard, the same way. So these are the things that you need to see to make sure you're great. Here's something else that you can hold on to show you how great you can be.
When you think of the first black superstar, you might think maybe of Denzel Washington or Will Smith, or going back a bit further, maybe Sidney Poitier. But one name kind of reigns above all of those, and that is Paul Robeson. An actor, singer, activist, trained lawyer and athlete, a guy who had it all, and about whom we know too little. I think Paul Robeson is a fascinating figure about whom people know very little. He's born in 1898 in Princeton, New Jersey, and he is the son of a freed slave. So he's kind of got that rebellious political spirit from a very early age. And it doesn't take him long to excel in a number of fields. He discovers that he's got this talent for singing and for projecting on stage. So he makes a big hit on stage at college.
First, I would say that here is a part which has dignity for the Negro actor. Often we don't get those opportunities. And I would say that my people will be very proud of mine or any other Negro actor appearing in such a part.
He actually stars in 1925 in his first major feature film, which is a silent film called Body and Soul. In this, he plays this extraordinary double role, playing a corrupt, crooked, firebrand Pentecostal preacher and his mild-mannered twin brother. It might sound like a slightly ironic choice to talk about Body and Soul, because this silent era movie robs Robeson of his rich voice, but the expressiveness with which he performs and inhabits these two very different characters, and his power just careens through the screen, even though it was a silent movie. When you look at something like The Emperor Jones, the adaptation of Eugene O'Neill's play, which is, I believe, the first time that a black actor in a major American studio picture is billed above white actors, he's taking a risk on playing an ambiguous and complicated character who does, in some ways, revert to those anti-black stereotypes that we talk about, the idea of this savage brute. But he's brave enough to take that role on and bring layers to it.
Takes a silver bullet to kill Brutus Jones.
It didn't save him from being criticised in the black community, in the black press, for in some ways perpetuating these negative stereotypes. These are happening in segregated theatres, so this is a Jim Crow era America. So you have these independent black filmmakers like Michaud and Spencer Williams who are operating entirely independently of the Hollywood system, and they're making films about black subjects for black audiences. I mean, these films were quite widely seen, so his talent was recognised and he wasn't afraid to put himself forward. Arguably, Robeson's most famous role in Hollywood is in Showboat, where he sings the standard Old Man River, which has become immortalized since. And his version of that is the most famous version of it, I think.
Old Man River, that old man river, he must know something, but don't say nothing. He just keeps rolling, he keeps on rolling.
In films like Body and Soul and The Emperor Jones, you do see Robeson taking on these more complex and complicated roles before settling into perhaps some more slightly kind of sanctified saintly roles. But as Jane Baldwin wrote, a lot of these black actors have had scripts where the complexity is not in the script. So they've had to smuggle complexity into the scripts that simply aren't there. And we have to look into the actors' eyes and study their performances to see what they're bringing to us and their lived experiences as black people. Well, as a scholar and an intellect at college, he's always interested in political issues and social justice. He effectively exiles himself because he's smart enough to realise that the roles are simply not there for him. The early stereotypes that have been calcified in American cinema, from D.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation onwards, this kind of hugely influential and technically incredible but extremely racist film, which seems to have informed all of black representation in American cinema since. Paul Robeson sees that and he realises that the roles that he wants to play, dignified, complicated, multifaceted characters, those roles are not going to be available to him. So he takes a chance and he goes to Europe. And when he comes to Britain and he stars in films like Song of Freedom and The Proud Valley in Wales, where he strikes up a communion with Welsh coal miners, and he becomes increasingly involved and interested in labour struggles. And that kind of never left him. And when he went back to America, he saw what was happening again in Jim Crow America. This is before the civil rights movement really kicked into gear in the 50s and 60s, and he's seeing injustice all around him.
Here's a question of whether one who wants to sing and act can have, as a citizen, political opinion. And in attacking me, they suggested that when I was abroad, I spoke out against injustices to the Negro people in the United States. I certainly did.
Because of his deep-seated commitment to his ideals throughout his career, Paul Robeson found himself a hotly disputed figure and also ostracized. And that places him in a line of many high-profile black athletes and public figures, actors, performers who have spoken out and have found themselves being frozen out. We look at Tommy Smith and John Carlos at the '68 Olympics with their famous Black Power salute, and even up to today with somebody like Colin Kaepernick, who's made a very bold statement and for doing so has found himself frozen out, very much like Robeson was as well. So perhaps when we look at Robeson, we're not looking at someone from the past, but a central figure on a continuum of American race relations. As with so many politically outspoken and controversial figures, there is a note of tragedy to Robeson's final years. His passport had been revoked. By the time it was given back to him and he was allowed to travel again, his health was on the wane. So he did go back to Europe, but his career was never able to reach the heights that it should have done. And he died in the late 70s, almost in obscurity, which is a real tragedy for a figure with such colossal talent.
Welcome back. This is HRap. This is Built for This Network. You are tuning in to the End of the Bench podcast, Build and Destroy, where we build up the community, destroy the lies and propaganda that are around our community. As you just saw, these are the type of people that we need to hear about. We don't, look, don't get me wrong, man. I'm a sports fan too. I'm damn near a sports almanac. You ask me a question about sports, I can tell you about it, no matter what the year is. Years before I was born and up into this very day. But this is not the only history that we need to know. We need to know about Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson, guess what he used to do while he was working through law school? He did, he had an odd job. I remember how Bo Jackson had a hobby, the NFL. Just happened to be Paul Robeson's hobby, too. He worked his way through college playing professional football. A trained lawyer. His wife was even greater. I'm going to do something, find something about his wife, show that to you. And these are the things that we need to know because, look, Marcus Garvey. I'm going to quote Marcus Garvey, Carter G. Woodson, on show for the rest of the show. And they said that Marcus Garvey said, if you don't know your history, it's like a tree without no roots. See, this is why I stopped doing sports, because they kept telling me stuff that I know I've seen. We've never seen this before. I'm 50 years old. I've seen a lot. Don't tell me what I haven't seen. You may be able to tell a 16-year-old boy that. I'm a grown man. I've seen it. And stop telling me these things. But when you have trained people to listen to the television and listen to the radio, and that's all they get, and they don't understand then it's easy to program people. That's what it is. Televised lies. You notice it's called television programming. They tell you exactly what they're doing, and you just ignore it because you think it's just verbiage. But it is a direct order. It is a directive. We are living in a situation to whereas we continue to allow other people who don't like us to tell us who we are. Oh, it's nothing but violence. This brings me to Texas. I had one of the greatest weekends of my entire life this weekend in Texas. Not one person even looked at me like, who is he? I had a brother walk up to me and say, hey, I watch your show every Monday. I watch your show on Tuesday. Guy didn't know me. All the people in the world, you just walk up and say, hey, I know you. You see what I'm saying? But what do you hear about Texas? You hear the same thing you hear about Chicago, that when I walk outside of my house, I better start ducking because they're going to start shooting, right? Chicago is the most violent place in the world. And when you look at the statistics, Chicago isn't even the most violent place in the state of Illinois. How about that? See, we continue to allow people to tell us who we are. Oh, all you hear about, no disrespect to anybody, but all you hear about is crazy gun-toting white folks, Trump supporters, and people that hate brothers. That's all you hear about in Texas. But guess what? I saw something in Texas that I've never seen in the state of Illinois. I've been all up and down, left and right in the state of Illinois. Every place that you want to be, I've been. And I saw something in Texas that I've never seen in the metropolitan city of Chicago. My man, dog, he picked me up at the plane at the airport. Take me right to this place, this black-owned restaurant. 50% of the patrons are not black. When he comes here and I take him to MacArthur's, he'd be lucky to see a black cop drive past. But y'all tell me Texas is crazy. Again, we allow the social structure and the governance structure, how people see you and how you see yourself. It's a sad commentary that I fell into the nonsense and the propaganda about Texas. Because you know what I do? What I've been doing on these airs, at least this year when I just exclusively went community empowerment, defend my city. Meanwhile, I've allowed this prejudice about somebody else's state. You know, like that lie that everybody and their mama tell you. You say African. And if you say African in a room full of your friends and family members, one of them is going to say, they don't like us. So basically, you telling me that you've spoken with 1 billion people on the continent and your ass ain't left your zip code. But again, social structure tells us this. And the governance structure we should be following, it don't. Do you know how ignorant I would have been if my man Doc wouldn't have hosted me this weekend? For a lot of years. My cousin Terry, he's down there. He's been telling me since we were 16 to come down there and spend some time. When he was 20, he was like, cuz I'm doing big things. I need you to come down here. And I wouldn't. Come down there for a little while. Hey, ooh, cute girl. I'm out. I don't come down there this weekend. I'm still as ignorant as I was a week ago today. And, you know, salute to, man, thank y'all for always saying, man, I learned a lot on your show, Rap. But Rap learned a lot this weekend, man. And it came to a crescendo last night on the forecast when everything my man Dog was talking to me about, a dude who wasn't within, he was 10, 12 miles away from us, had no idea we were having this conversation, verbatim, said everything. See, I always tell y'all this thing called ways of knowing. And when you have ways of knowing, all that is your ancestors speaking to you through other entities or through your soul. Slow down. I keep telling y'all, when you pray, you talk to God. When you meditate, you listen to God. We got to get into that. We start taking our time. Start watching the forecast because guess what? We thought it was just a cool show to watch. But as Dolph said every week, we ain't just doing this to talk about movies. We're giving you culture. We're giving you experience. And we enhancing your lives. Hopefully, I'm doing the same. We must get out of this rut of not knowing about yesterday. Patricia Mason, thank you for joining in. It's always good to see you, and I appreciate that. We must get used to learning about ourselves. Okay, you just learned about Paul Robeson. And I stated a second ago, if you don't know your history, it's like a tree with no roots, right? How many of y'all before watching Lovecraft Country or even realize that that person, that the woman with the blue hair, I can't think of her name right now, she was a major player in Lovecraft Country, and she went back in time. She was playing the role of Queen Nzinga. If you don't know who Queen Nzinga is, when they came to her country, she fought off the Portuguese army. And she ain't died. You know, she did this stuff for several years, decades. And she died just like your grandmama died, in the bed, transitioned out. See, we don't know about Queen Nzinga. We don't know about Frederick Douglass and my cousin, I will continue to say it, Nat Turner. Yes. And see, the reason I bring up Frederick Douglass and Nat Turner, not because they were big, super, like my pastor used to say, Pastor Lucy, not because they super dudes. They are a perfect example. Frederick Douglass and Nat Turner are a perfect example of why you need to learn your history. Frederick Douglass, in one of his memoirs, wrote, when he was a little boy, a family purchased him. The woman of that family taught him how to read. The man came in and said, what are you doing? And I got to use, I ain't going to use the word. The word. You can't teach that word, that one word, how to read. Because if he learns how to read, he going to think he's too good to be a slave. Nat Turner, you know, they used the Bible that, like our smart brothers, you know, our woke brothers. I don't do that white man's Bible, not knowing that the Bible that the white man reading from is a Bible that your black behind ancestors wrote, and the oldest Bible in the world is sitting in Ethiopia right now. If you don't realize what Ethiopia is, all you have to do is look in your Bible and look up this word called Kush, C-U-S-H or K-U-S-H. That's Ethiopia. So, the land of Kush. And when you find out the land of Kush, you're going to find out something else, and then we'll go from there. But that Bible is being used against you. That's why when people used to call my sports show, and they throw a bunch of statistics at me, I would slap them down. Because like I tell them, a statistic is like a bikini. It show a lot, but it don't show everything. And yeah, the white man introduced you to your Bible, reworded it, put it in different contexts, and guess what? Handed it to you and brainwashed you with it. Like, love thy enemy. Oh, they ain't going to get me to love them and what they did to me. No, it has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with that. And that's why Proverbs 14:13, it's always safety amongst counsel. You must talk. You must have Doc. You must have my Uncle Rory. You must have my friend Chris. You must have my friend Big Illinois and my man Steve. You must have these people. Shout out. You know what? Happy birthday to happy belated birthday. His birthday was yesterday. I wasn't on audience, so I could. Yes, I was, but I didn't think about it. Happy birthday to my sister Rhonda and my nephew Mike. When you know these things, when you learn these things, that counsel that you're sitting amongst will not allow you to walk down the path of ignorance. It will educate you. It will put you in a better situation. And when you're in that better situation, you have nothing to do but prepare yourself into greatness. I've experienced it. I know it to be true. I live it every day. So we must continue to move in that direction. You must open a book. You don't even have to open a book anymore. You're watching me on YouTube. When this ends, for that 30 minutes before dark come on, just all you have to do is look up anything. Just Google anything. Google a book, and it'll be on it. If you want to Google a real book, Google The Miseducation of the Negro by our ancestor Carter G. Woodson. Look it up. You ain't even got to read it now. They'll read it to you. Listen to these things. Learn these things. Understand who you are, how great you could be. To quote my man again, don't focus. I done quoted Carter G. Woodson. I done quoted Marcus Garvey. I done quoted W.B. Du Bois. I'm going to quote my man, Dog. Don't focus on your weaknesses. Focus on your strengths. And your strengths is what's inside of you. Your strengths are built inside of you. And when you focus on the things that are inside of you, it will propel you to greatness. Because like me, I joke every week and say I can't spell. I don't know. You know what? You know why I don't give a damn about spelling? Because I got a dictionary on my phone and I got Google on my phone. So if I can't spell a word, I Google it. So I don't have to worry about it. But what I do need you to do is start looking into, just do me a favor. Do me a favor. The very next thing that pops into your head, Google it and find out. Like, okay, how about this? Do yourself a favor. Here's something. If you don't want to do what pops in your head, I'm going to give you something. Look up the word Pharaoh. Go to etymology.com. Etymology.com. Spelled phonetically. So if you can't spell it, if you put in etymology, it'll come up. .com. Look up the word Pharaoh. You'll get a pleasant surprise. So these are the things that we must do to enhance. Because look, they're setting up laws right now. So you can't learn your past. You'll never figure out who Bunch is. You'll never figure out who Baynard Rustin is. And look at this. We don't know who Baynard Rustin is because he was a gay guy. Again, who gives a damn what you do in your private life if you out here helping us? Whitney Young. How many Chicagoans who listen to my show, thank you, know that Whitney Young is more than a high school? It's a reason that that's one of the best high schools in the United States of America, because their name is attached to it, and it is a big black building, and he was a big black brother. Not coincidental. The ancestors put you in position to learn things, but it's up to you to slow down and look at them. You can do anything that you want to do. Like they put, thank you, Nicole. Thank you. Good to see you. Pete, they put stuff out there. You're a jack of all trades, master of none. There's no such thing as that. Who said you can't master everything you try? If you want to. If you want to try it and you want to do it, you can achieve it. But they tell you, oh, you can't do that. You can do it. Look, man, it's people that were sitting on the ground. They were walking on the ground and created the pyramids. They created irrigation. They created mathematics. They told you the distance between the sun and the earth when there was no spaceships. So how can somebody tell you that those people who DNA flows through your blood, whether you identify it or not, you can't do something? They don't tell you about King Mansa Musa, who changed the entire economy of the world by going to a Hajj to Mecca with 70,000 people draped in gold. These are your people. And if anybody can do it, you can. So we must understand this is why they are banning things like critical race theory, which really don't have anything to do with it, but they don't want you to have any clue on what's going on. They're banning the teachings of the enslaved Africans. They're banning the teachings of Jim Crow segregation. They're banning the teachings of redlining. And I quote, there are certain states that you cannot teach something that may hurt a white person's feelings. This goes back to a law that's been on the books since 1771. It is called meritorious manumission. You can get your freedom if you save a white person's life, make life easier for a white person, or snitch on a slave revolt. These things, right, that's the foundation of the issues in our problem right now. Because instead of telling the truth, we make white folks feel comfortable because we want our freedom. I'm trying to get out of this. We saving white folks' lives because I don't want him, then they can come back and get us. If we get him, they gonna get us. And if you snitch on the slave revolt, you always you're always telling on something. You're always living up to some idea that other people are not living up to. But we got this. We're righteous. No, we're not. We're foolish at this point. I'm not telling anybody in the history of the world to break the law. I'm not telling anybody in the history of the world to do wrong by anybody. Again, like my man P says, Premium P, penitentiary rules are in effect. Respect everything and everybody around you. But love you first. Loving you has never hurt anybody in the history of the world and never will. But if you love you, like the Moors, and it's a street organization in Chicago, they adapted some of the Moorish beliefs. They said, Do for self. Self means everybody around you. You are a piece of the whole. Self. See, you can learn something from anything if you study it and pay attention. And these laws that are set out here are just like, look, just now, you can't learn about the destruction or the attempted destruction of our community, just like they used to call it when they did the native people, the indigenous people. It was called assassination or assimilation or extermination. The motto of that was kill the Indian, not the man. If you really want to get but Jesus shocked out of you, look up White Man's Burden. It's a small video clip. I should pull it up now, but now I'm not going through all that. Look up the White Man's Burden. Will blow your mind. I should have did that video, but I didn't. But it will blow your mind, and it is a small video of what the propaganda is about white folks, and they have to pull us out of poverty, pull us out of savagery and things of that nature, and it's insane. But this is what these people were teaching their young people in that time. So we must, when you learn these things, you'll understand why so much dissemination and discrimination and hate. Dissemination. You're never going to get people to give away their power. But if you organize, just quote our ancestor, the great Kwame Ture, you may know him as Stokely Carmichael, organization is the key. If you don't understand that, why you think Dr. King had an organization, Southern Christian organization? Why do you think the most honorable Elijah Muhammad created the Nation of Islam? Malcolm X created 2 Muslim organizations before he was exterminated, assassinated, murdered. Organization is the key. If you don't like the way the Urban League is operating, join the Urban League and turn it around. If you don't like the way the NAACP is operating, join the NAACP and turn it around. Or create your own organization. Organization is the key. It can be something small. It could be a block club. We're going to make sure our block is clean. And then we're going to go to every city council meeting. And we're going to raise Cain until y'all fund our schools. And when y'all fund our schools, as we're doing that, we're telling Tyrone, we're telling Lil Earl and John and Jake and Boom Keisha and all these crazy names we come up with. Hey, name your kid what you want to name him, because if you name him that, you're attempting to reach back to your culture, to your historic, to your ancestral past. So I don't have a heaven or hell to put you in regards to your names. And for the people that go, you can't name your kids that because people are going to hire them. Good. Make them entrepreneurs. But we're going to teach our kids to be police officers. We're going to teach our kids to be teachers. We're going to teach our kids to be politicians. And in 10, 15, 20 years, we'll be out of this situation. And I do mean out of it. Because when you train your kids to be what you need them to see in the future, when the future is there, the future is now. And when they get to the future, they'll already be there. Because then when you teach them about Carter G. Woodson, when you teach about Marcus Garvey, when you teach them about Baynard Rustin, when you teach them about Ralph Bunche, when you teach them about Ralph Abernathy, when you teach them about these men and women, when you teach them about Fannie Lou Hamer, when you teach them about Dorothy Chisholm, when you teach them about, because now, sorry y'all, that lady in the who lives in the vice president house, she was not the first black woman to run for that office. The first woman to run for the office is a sister by the name Shirley Chisholm. See, but we've never seen that before, but we have. We have. So this is what I want you to do. Focus on education, not training. Education, training is learn your multiplication table. George Washington told a lie. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. Lie. And they weren't slaves. They were enslaved. They were prisoners of war from our continent, home continent, which is of Africa. But Abraham Lincoln didn't free the slaves or the people he called the enslaved people, because he freed the enslaved people in the Confederate. That's like me telling, that's like Joe Biden telling everybody in Mexico that y'all don't have to work tomorrow. Because the Confederate was a different country at that point. So how you free somebody in another country? Because if you lose the war, what's the emancipation mean? And by the way, it's a 4-year war. It was getting their behinds kicked for the first, 48 months. For the first 36 months, they was getting their behind whipped. They gave brothers guns. They gave Harriet Tubman her own regiment that you don't talk about, that she ended up getting a pension for, and they got a Tubman House up in Michigan right now. Yes, Tubman House, due to the back, guess what? A bunch of kids wrote their congressman and put their pennies together, and they got Harriet Tubman's family the money, and they built the Tubman House in Michigan right now. It's a national monument, and it's a tourist attraction. But she used to lead a regiment, but they wouldn't give it to her because she was a woman and she was one of us. And they got her money. So if a bunch of teenagers can write Hillary Clinton and get her to do this for our ancestors, why can't we do it right now? Educate all of us got kids. Well, a lot of us got kids. A lot of us got grandkids. A lot of us got nieces, nephews, cousins. And we can train them to be exactly what we want them to be, and not what is programmed into them to be. And we can educate them, not train them about us instead of buying into the system. And with that being said, I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. This is Built for This Network on Spreaker.com. Subscribe, hit the like button, share, tell a friend to tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m., every Saturday at 5 p.m. I am going to do a little tweaking to my program. I do interviews, but I'm going to do more interviews. I'm going to do a panel every month. And it was 1 week every month. We're going to do a panel. We're going to talk about everything that I talk about in this month. All the news stories, anything anybody on the panel wants to talk about. I'm going to be interviewing a few people coming up soon. I don't want to put their name out there just yet. A couple people have committed. I could say their name, but I'm not. Tune in. Keep tuning in. You'll find out. But what I'm going to do, man, is do exactly what the title of the show is. I'm going to build up my community. And we're going to destroy the lies and propaganda about this. G-Rock will be back in July. DJ Mad Knox and his crew will be back. Big Illinois will be back. Lisa will be back. Mukadeen will be back. And I'll be back. And as I do every week, I acknowledge my man, the Power Father, the late, great ancestor, Reggie O'Shea, gone too soon. He goes by the name of Combat Jack. And I got this moniker from him, and I use it because I respect him, got mad love for him, and I want you to understand who he is and what he accomplished. Dream those dreams and man up and woman up and live those dreams, because life without dreams flows in black and white. Life with dreams flows in technicolor surround sound. And I'm going to leave you with this tidbit. Do something before something is done to you. This is your man HRap B, Built for This Network. I want you to go over to BS3 Radio and support my man Doc. It's a wonderful show about to come on. He'll be on about an hour. Him and the three queens, his sisters, wonderful people. He's a wonderful person. Support him, please. If you listen to me, I need you to, his name is right there, Ivan Okito Thought. I need you to support him. If you support me, support him. Support Ben for BS3. Go to BS3 Radio on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Hit the share button. Do the same thing you do for me, do for him. I'm going to send you the link anyway, if you do it or not. You know. Shout out to my man, Ready Cam. Shout out to Jay Twice. I'm still praying for your sister. Anybody who listening, this is my man, Ready Cam right there. I want you to pray for his wife, Janet. Don't make a difference while you're praying. Pray for good health for her. Do it for me. Show her some love. I love Janice. I need you to too. So if you love me, I want you to pray for my brother's wife and pray for him and everybody in his family. Pray for everybody, man. And man, that's it, man. I done run my mouth enough. I'm getting ready to. I'm finna go get these cherries out of my refrigerator. I'm addicted to cherries. I'm finna get this beer. I know cherries and beer don't go together, but don't judge me. But I'm finna get ready for my man Dog Show. And Mika, I got your name right this time. I ruined your name last night, my girl Mika. But I really appreciate everybody's support. I see y'all Saturday, man. It's been real, and I want y'all to keep on keeping on. It's your man HRap, 2 fingers, 1 word, and I am out.
We are Built for This Network, for the strong, not the weak.